have some new revelations in the Harvard President Claudine Gay plagiarism saga, as new reporting implies that former President Barack Obama may have privately pressured Harvard into not firing Gay in the face of her universally panned performance during the Capitol Hill anti-Semitism hearings, and also mounting evidence that she plagiarized large portions of her scholarship. As Jewish Insider reports, according to a source familiar with the matter, Obama, a Harvard graduate, had privately lobbied on Gay's behalf as she faced pressure to resign in the wake of her disastrous appearance before the congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. Quote, "It sounded like people were being asked to close ranks to keep the broader administration stable, including its composition." The source, who was informed of Obama's outreach and asked to speak anonymously to discuss a confidential matter, told Jewish Insider on Tuesday that much of the controversy circles around Penny Pritzker, a former Obama administration official and early Obama campaign backer who now serves as chair of Harvard's board of directors. Pritzker personally led the search committee that named Gay as president and praised her as a remarkable leader who is profoundly devoted to sustaining and enhancing Harvard's academic excellence. Now, some point to her connection with Gay's hiring as a reason for her current silence on the topic and for Obama's personal intervention in this matter.
While it has not been confirmed as fact, there are rumors swirling about that Gay might be on her way out. Businessman and commentator Bill Ackerman posted on Twitter last week that he had heard from a source that is reliable but a step or two removed from the situation that the Harvard Corporation has asked President Gay to resign, and she has refused. Gay has apparently said that if she is fired, she will sue. Gay has retained her own counsel. The whole debacle caused former 538 head Nate Silver to comment regarding both some slow stakes Harvard plagiarism stuff and high stakes COVID origins controversies. It seems like progressives are staking out a position to save face in the short run that's inevitably going to lead to a bigger loss of face in the long run. So, Robbie, what do you think that loss of face would be?
I just think it's embarrassing and humiliating and discrediting to defend, if anyone is still doing this. And I will note that a lot of actually liberal-minded people are not defending Claudine Gay anymore. The Washington Post's Ruth Marcus said that Gay should resign. There was a New York Times a column, I believe, by John McWhorter, who may not, I don't know that he classifies himself as a liberal, but did appear in the New York Times, calling for her to resign. I see a lot more people conceding that the allegations against her are very serious. Obviously, we talked about them last week. I've done a couple radars on the subject. Numerous examples of her not just doing sloppy plagiarism, paraphrasing other people, but also in some cases lifting passages without even acknowledging where they came from in the first place. The very textbook examples of plagiarism over and over and over again. And it seems obvious that the president of Harvard, one of the most elite educational institutions on the planet, should be held to the same standards as a student who would attend that university. It doesn't have to be instantaneous. They could have a process. They could actually investigate and adjudicate this with rigor. It seems so far the Harvard Corporation board has stood by her, although now we might be hearing privately they might want her out despite President Obama's lobbying, if you can believe that. So I don't know. Do you think, I'll flip the question on its head, do you think protecting Claudine Gay at this point should be a priority for progressives?
I don't really think it should be a priority, but I think at this point it has to. If you care about the government intervening in an institution, a university's leadership, many people are very upset about this that have nothing to do with Harvard University. I've never taken a class there. I took classes at Harvard when I was a graduate student. It is not this kind of rampant leftist cesspool of ideas like many members of conservative media have made it out to be. Claudine Gay didn't even say she supports anti-Semitism. She said she finds the statements that were described by Stefanik to be incredibly grotesque. She didn't like them. She said that what she will do as president is protect free speech. We just had Liz McGill resign as president from UPenn after this hearing and the backlash from it because a donor, Ross Stevens, threatened to claw back a $100 million donation. Should presidents of universities be bought and sold by private actors who will not be students at the universities, who are not students at the universities? That is ridiculous to me, that someone with a lot of money can just go in and say, well, I'll give you $100 million if she's out. What does that say about the protection of free speech and the exchange of ideas in our country? That makes me incredibly concerned. So when I think about the kind of backlash Claudine Gay is getting for simply saying she'll allow students to form their own opinion on the matter of Israel-Palestine, I think it would be ridiculous for her to resign over this kind of backlash, especially because it's coming from the same actors who are always trying to say free speech is under threat in the United States of America. So we can have free speech unless it's about Israel-Palestine. I think that's absurd.
Well, at no point did I ever call for the government to intervene in this matter at all. I don't think it's a matter for the government. B, I would agree with you that she should not face consequences for just defending students and faculty members' free speech rights. In fact, it is incumbent on her to do so. I wish she had done so more vocally, more full-throatedly in her history of presiding over Harvard. There are lots of examples of her not doing that. In fact, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression ranks Harvard either last or second to last of all the hundreds of institutions it ranks on the question of free speech. She is not a free speech leader of this institution. The organization that does free speech rankings has her school last. So she has failed to uphold free speech commitments. Do I think she should be fired for articulating a free speech viewpoint on Israel-Palestine in the halls of Congress? Absolutely not. In fact, as I've said multiple times, I substantively agree with her. In fact, it does take context, the kinds of judgments she was being asked about. I don't think they've applied context in the past, but what she was saying was correct. Absolutely, she should not be fired for that. She should be fired, or she should be disciplined or subject to some kind of investigation or proceeding for committing rampant plagiarism over and over again. That is not a free speech issue. That has nothing to do with free speech. That's just free speech is not I can plagiarize someone's, documents and then face no academic consequences at Harvard or another institution. That's crazy. No student could get before a disciplinary board and say, when I copied my, when I just filled in all the bubbles on my test based on what my neighbor had done, that was my free speech, so you can't hold me accountable for that. That's ridiculous. And the evidence that has been marshaled that she committed plagiarism is very persuasive at this point. So no, I don't care why people have seized on this, but what they've presented is true. And at the end of the day, you have to be in just a managerial role as the custodian of the university. She has to be held. Doesn't she have to be held accountable the same way students would be held accountable?
Well, the board at Harvard, the staff at Harvard responsible for looking into things like this looked into it, and they said that they didn't find that that Claudine Gay, the president, violated the code of conduct back in 1997. And so they already went through their internal process. This isn't
I think they need
business.
to borrow my magnifying glass, Jessica. I think they need I'll let them have my detective hat and my little pipe, and they could maybe try to get to the bottom of it a little harder, I think.
Yeah. I don't think the problem is they couldn't see the words clearly, Robbie. I think, the problem here is there are so many people. I get that your view is that the plagiarism is wrong and that, someone who commits an act of plagiarism shouldn't be the president of an esteemed university. But I don't know that I believe that what she did was plagiarism in her paraphrasing and her failure to quote. Harvard doesn't believe it either. This is the matter of the university to be settled within the university, and it sounds like they already reviewed her work. What I have a problem with here is that there are many people that don't actually have a problem with the plagiarism directly, but this is what they've got. They know that Claudine Gay is not going to crack down on the folks that say free Palestine at Harvard, on the folks that say from the river to the sea at Harvard, on the folks that recognize that what Israel is doing by bombing refugee camps, bombing schools being used as a shelter, raiding and attacking the busiest hospitals in Gaza, where there are babies that are receiving treatment in the NICU. They raid the hospital and it results in the death of over 40 babies. When we had these kind of false narratives that were proven to have no evidence about what Hamas is doing, but then it's well documented that Israel is doing all of these things, these genocidal acts. They've killed 21,000 people, 8,000 of those children. If she's going to defend people at Harvard saying that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there are very many people that don't want Israel to be criticized that are now attacking Claudine Gay, and they want her to resign because of plagiarism. But really what it's about is that she's going to allow people to criticize Israel at one of the most powerful institutions in the world. And that's why they want her to resign. And so that's why I think it's very smart that she got counsel, because I don't think they have grounds to force her to quit a job that she seems to be doing an okay job at serving as the president of Harvard University. So I think if she does ultimately get pressured to resign, it's going to be a big loss for free speech. It's going to be a big loss for having political conversations in the United States that go against what the regime or the administration supports in the United States.
I don't think it would be a blow to free speech. I think it might be a huge win for free speech if Harvard were to hire a person to run the university who takes free speech more seriously than she does, given that they're ranked dead last by the organization that does free speech rankings, FIRE. Which, and by the way, FIRE has criticized numerous institutions for violating the free speech rights of pro-Palestinian student organizations, spoke out, for instance, against what Ron DeSantis, as did I, against what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, decertifying the pro-Palestinian student groups in a couple colleges in Florida. So I agree that pro-Palestinian speech should be protected, just like pro-Israel speech, pro any kind of speech. We should have broad tolerance for, they're not literally, they don't have to follow exactly the First Amendment, but many of these institutions have committed to a free speech paradigm that reflects the First Amendment, and they have promised that to their students and their faculty when students gave their money to attend these institutions and faculty decided to work there. So I think they ought to live up to those commitments. Harvard has manifestly failed to do so under Claudine Gay's leadership, and the fact that, and again, if the shoe fits, if it is plagiarism, and it certainly looks like it to me, they can pretend it's not. But it certainly seems consistent that it violates Harvard's standards. And given that, I don't think she can just say, well, the people going after me dislike me for some other reason. Again, that wouldn't be an excuse if you were before a disciplinary review board at a university as a student or professor, and you said, well, the person who caught me cheating on my homework is, hates me for political reasons or dislikes me for that wouldn't matter. That wouldn't matter if it was an actual transgression of the policy. So I don't know. I think this one's becoming clearer and clearer cut. But again, I'm not upset with her necessarily over her answers at the hearing. But I do think people uncovered some pretty stark examples, to my mind, of plagiarism. But maybe we'll see how this develops. We'll see if we can get more conclusive reporting on whether she is actually at risk at this point. If this reporting on the behind closed doors goings on are true, and maybe they are looking to get rid of her. We'll have to see. I'm sure we'll be still covering this story in the new year. More Rising right after this.